All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind. But we're going to have a show.
And good morning, everybody. We are on. Yeah. So good. So good. It's our, this is the third week of our YouTube show. After KGO folded, we turned our attention to YouTube. That's where we are. With Mark Thompson Show, I'm Mark, and we've got the whole crew. As you can see, Kim is here. Hi, Kim. And, you know, Kim, we'll get to you in a moment. I want to talk about Halloween. We've got a special guest coming in. Will be joining us to speak about something kind of, in a way, Halloween-related.
Kim, how are you?
Yeah. And a fabulous producer, John Daly, is here.
John Daly.
Tony's
morning.
away today. Yeah, good morning.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. Tony's away today, so.
Morning.
Yeah, but it's nice to have everybody on board. And good morning to
Morning.
you. First thing I would say to you is welcome. The second thing I would say is smash that like button right away as you filter in. There's some big news. We're going to get to a Supreme Court decision related to Donald Trump's tax returns and essentially providing him additional cover to not have to release those returns to the congressional committee.
Who didn't see that coming?
Yeah, right. He's kind of got the court mobbed up. But David Katz is going to join in the 11 o'clock hour, and we'll speak about that in greater detail. Honestly, it's not the only thing we're going to talk about with David Katz. It's kind of a big legal day at both the Supreme Court level and elsewhere. And I would mention the other Supreme Court case, which is, I think, worthy of a lot of attention, is what's going on in higher education, and essentially an affirmative action case at the Supreme Court level that could decide the way universities and colleges admit students and whether or not they can use race and ethnicity in factoring in everything else that will ultimately decide whether someone can go to school at that university or college. It's all in the second hour with David Katz. That's just a piece of it. We'll talk also the Pelosi situation, as these bizarre conspiracies have to be debunked one at a time. But that's all what's going on a little bit later in the second hour. There's a true crime breakthrough and, in a way, breaking news in the last couple of days. And my darling Courtney, who is a devotee of true crime, she was excited about this breakthrough. And I said, well, if you'll come on the show and you'll explain to us who are not necessarily following this beat to beat why it's important, then I will get interested. So she is going to come on the show. That'll be after Kim's News at 10:30. So all of that's going to happen. Last night was Trick or Treat, Halloween. It's changed a lot now through the years. It seems like everybody's involved in Halloween. Kim, you have kind of the charming Petaluma Halloween.
Yeah,
with the kids out trick-or-treating. Yeah.
I was trying to bring some pictures up to show you guys, but my town really gets into it. And we have this kind of big street called D Street, and there's stately, I don't know if I'll call them mansions, but they're bigger, beautiful homes. And that's the street to go to. I think one year Good Morning America came because it was like voted one of the best, small town Halloweens. Anyway, really fun, packed. There's this one house that does has a mariachi band out there, and it's just it's a fun time. But I thought
it was a low key kind of neighborhood Pleasantville thing. It sounds like it's a real party.
It's a party. Wow. It is a party. So this is, if I can share the screen. This is Julia and her friends. Julia's
fabulous
my
producer. Kim, how are you?
What?
She's over here on the side, on the left. She's the narwhal. So that's Julia. And let's see if I can't show you a different one. I don't know if I can.
I think I wish the picture was bigger too. Those are all your Gmails. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
Where are those
All
pictures?
your subscriptions. Yeah, where are those pictures I was supposed to share?
I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see
Okay,
this
go
week.
ahead. What is that?
That's Jacob, and he was an angel when his wings lighting up. So there he is trick or treating. So that's kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
It
Halloween.
looks kind of like it's got a backstage Cirque du Soleil look to it. You know what I mean? It's got a lot. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, I also grew up in Petaluma, and we went to D Street for Halloween because they had the full-size candy bars.
They do have the full class. Yeah.
Fabulous producer, John Daly.
John is more motivated by, he's sort of one-dimensional that way, I think. But,
well, I'm practical.
absolutely.
I've been practical for a long time.
And there's the angel again.
Yeah, there's Jacob again. Okay, so that's
Very
it.
cool.
That's
well, a quick note that I did go with my astronaut jumpsuit, and it was a big hit.
Do we have a picture?
Courtney and I went as his and her astronauts. We got the jumpsuits, and it was pretty special. Maybe we'll show it to you later if we can bring that technology to bear. But I'll tell you who I saw yesterday. Not at a Halloween thing, because he thinks Halloween is for amateurs. He's a real monster movie student of cinema. He's a comedian and longtime friend, Bobby Slayton, who joins us now. I said, Bobby, come with your disdain for all things Halloween.
First of all, you sounds like I take up too much time. It sounds like a tremendous lineup on your show today. Although, to be honest with you, I think it's going to go pretty much downhill after me. So you might as well keep me on for as long as you can. The worst part of going to a Halloween party is going to a Halloween party. I can't believe that you got invited. I don't want to get into this, but you got invited to the party, and then they told you not to come unless you had a costume. But I do remember we talked about this at lunch yesterday.
Hold on a second, Bobby. Hold on a second. Stop. Why is Bobby's a little broken up, John Daly? Yeah, a little bit.
It might be his
Fabulous producer, John Daly.
Possibly. I just want people to be able to hear him cleanly. What do you think? Say it again.
Maybe if we can move the microphone a little, maybe move it a little away from your.
Well, he's wearing the headset. What do you think?
Yeah,
what do you mean?
That's the microphone, the white.
I'll move it a little farther. You think it's rubbing up against his
that might
face?
be it, or it might just be a dropout.
Okay.
It's your fault, whatever it is. I've done a million podcasts and radio shows. I've never had a problem with anything. I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing. You guys are screwing up already.
Yeah, I'm on Bobby's side. I think actually it looks like it's not rubbing up against anything. So anyway, we'll keep talking for a second and let's keep it. So they said wear the party I went to said, hey, look, wear a costume or don't come.
Well, that's a perfect reason not to go. You're the one that always tells me every time you and I go for lunch, you don't really love leaving the house. You love being home. And then you get invited to some stupid party where you got to dress like an idiot, and then you go. I just remember when I was a kid, I think all of us, my parents never got dressed up. My parents never had Halloween parties. In the 40 years I did stand-up comedy, and it seems more every year that around Halloween time, every club will say, oh, we don't have a big crowd tonight. There's all the office Halloween parties. I don't remember ever going to the bank or going to school and seeing a teller or a teacher dressed like Batman.
Bobby isn't wrong, even through all the even through his this kind of like a little staticky. He's not wrong about this. It's weird how it's become an adult holiday. You know what I'm saying, guys? Bobby is right. When we were kids, Halloween was for kids. Now it's become, as Bobby says, you walk into every place and everybody's dressed up.
Yeah, but people want to go out to bars
I
half
grew up in the
naked.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a neighborhood like you guys did out in the suburbs. So the entire neighborhood, every single house, except for maybe one or two homes, dozens, maybe hundreds of homes, everybody had candy. Everybody, and it was a major, a metropolis suburb right outside of New York City. But now, on my street, there are no kids, which is great. I love having no children on my street. I don't need them around. But I remember when I first moved in, they would avoid my house. I was like Boo Radley from To Kill a Mockingbird. That's where the Slaytons lived. They wouldn't come anywhere near my house. It was great.
Well, the thing about, and we're on a street also where there's no sidewalk, so we got no visitors either on Halloween. I think they now really come. So the kids part now is concentrated in areas where there's a sidewalk and it's safe because the world's become a more dangerous place filled with crazies. But the same time, you're right. At a parallel track, Halloween's exploded and become an adult thing. So yesterday I'm talking to Bobby, and he's a monster. Like, he is a super big fan of monster movies and monsters and the history of, like, these monster characters.
Right.
And you showed me your wallet. And I thought that you only put this picture on your wallet for Halloween. But
no.
You have this picture on your wallet all the time. Here it is.
Well, it's the Phantom of the Opera, and I can't believe you didn't know who that was.
No, he said, "Do you know who that is?" And I said, "I think I guessed Bella Lugosi." No, I guess who did I guess? I don't know. Anyway, not important, but I guess wrong.
I think you said. I don't know who you said.
Boris Karloff or someone. I mean, I went to the default positions and guesses, but who is that, Bobby?
It's one of the sisters from Full House. It's not the good-looking twin. It's the other one. She let herself go.
But if you have this person on your wallet, you must really worship this actor. Who is it?
Well, it's Lon Chaney, and like anybody would know that. See, when I was a kid, it's funny because I took my wallet out at the grocery store the other day, and Gene Simmons was over there he was behind me in line. It was Lon Chaney, the best. He's a tremendous Monster fan. Gene Simmons.
Wow.
I have a couple
Gene
of
Simmons from Kiss. Recognized.
Next year you got to come with me. Once a year there's a thing, or twice a year, called Monster Palooza, and it's a big monster convention, and it's the only thing that I do. I have a friend that flies in from Florida, and it's just everything monsters. It's great. My girlfriend has no desire to go. I thought yesterday, I told you I was going to try to get her to watch Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein. The movie she's a real movie aficionado. She wouldn't watch it. I figured if I can't get her to watch it on Halloween, whatever. But if that's the biggest problem,
why is that movie? I thought that movie was kind of a cheeky play on, monster movies, and you worship that movie, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, as you think it's like the cornerstone of monster movies.
Well,
a film.
Maybe I was exaggerating. Me and Dana Carvey used to talk about it. It was our favorite movie, and I saw an interview with Quentin Tarantino, and who's seen every movie ever made, and he said one of his favorite films of all time was Abbott and Costello Meets Frankenstein, and he didn't realize this as a kid, and neither did I. What's great about the movie is the monsters play it straight. They're not all corny and goofy. They play it almost like a real horror movie. And so it was just, when you're a little kid, to watch something that's funny and scary, it's like seeing your parents naked. You don't know if you should laugh or run away.
So, excuse me. So, this world of monsters, then we'll finish. We're talking Bobby Slayton. Bobby, by the way, is the original MC at the Punchline, massive Bay Area comic star, and of course, across America. In New York, and played, all
right, whatever.
I just wanted to remind people of what a legend you are.
Yeah.
So, but he's hung up the mic temporarily, or I guess he stepped away from the mic. Anyway, so he now just opines on stuff like this, cinema and monster movies, etc.
Well, I have a lot of time. When you're retired, Mark, you have a lot of time on your hands. And since I don't give a rat's ass about sports, since I don't really want to go see people, so I have my monsters. And what I work on. But I'm trying to perfect pizza. That's what I'm doing. It's going to take years to make pizza.
Kim and John,
correct.
you know who was at his place making pizza the other day? Who was at your place? You posted on Instagram. One of the other
Paul Stanley
from Kiss.
Well, Paul is he's a big pizza making guy.
Yeah.
Who else do you want to make pizza with? I mean, I could see that.
He came to your house, Paul Stanley, to make pizza.
Well, he lives in my neighborhood, and we're always talking about pizza up at the market where we always see each other in the coffee shop. And I'm having trouble with my pizza oven. He's got the same pizza oven. He said to me, "Look, if you want me to come over and help you with pizza," and I'm not going to say no. And he came over and he made pizza for me, and he made a great sauce, and he made it look very simple. And so now I know how to make pizza, thanks to Paul Stanley.
So when he comes over, is he in full makeup?
No, but no, that's our next. After the pizza, our next thing is costumes and then makeup. I
gotta get the kids together to go to Slayton's for pizza. It's a child-friendly environment there with pizza and monsters.
Oh, he does not want kids. That's right. He does not want kids anywhere near it.
No, I'll go back to work the clubs again and play the Funny Bone in Omaha and stay to residence in before I love children over here.
Get away from kids.
Yeah.
I once worked at a radio station in Sacramento where we would regularly welcome Mr. Slayton in, and I was always impressed by his amazing ability to be kind of an equal opportunity offender. As far as there was no stone left unturned. How do you think of all the people to offend, right? I don't know if I would leave somebody out. Never. He never left anyone out.
Well, it wasn't like I tried to get every group of people. It's not like I walked off stage. Oh, I forgot the Hondurans and Salvadorians. I forgot the Klingons and the Chinese. I was just, I would basically, I like people say, can you still do that? And I mean, I quit comedy a couple of years ago, and I do occasional corporate gigs, and I've done a couple of clubs. And I think people, if they know me and they come to see me, they're expecting, you know what? It's a lose-lose situation, because it's like, this happened all the time. I get somebody in the front row, and I'm not saying pick on them. I would talk to them and try to help them and educate them. Somebody might call it picking on them, whatever. And some people loved it. That's why they sat in the front row. And then other people got angry. We're not here to be part of your show. And then I say things that I thought were funny and slightly offensive. That was the whole idea of comedy, as far as I'm concerned. Bill Hicks, Lenny Bruce, George Carlin. Not that I'm like any of them, but a lot of those guys, they would say things that they thought were funny, but also would, rattle you a little bit and, ruffle some feathers. But I get people say, oh, you weren't tough enough. You were so mild tonight. Then other people would get, pissed off. So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
And
that's where we're headed on this show. I get that all the time. How come you don't do more of this? How come you do so much of this? It's you begin to be sort of tossed back. But you obviously, anybody who sits in the front row at one of your shows, they have to be up for the blowtorch that's coming.
Well,
they have to enjoy it.
He's going to see Gallagher with the watermelon. You don't want to get hit with the watermelon. Don't sit up front.
Thank you. That's exactly it. Right.
I'm just perfect analogy.
So in our last minute or so, you still dust yourself off and go out there. I know you're with Bill Maher on that big New Year's Eve thing with Sarah Silverman a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that was great. And you want to know something? That was the first time I performed in over a year. And, it's interesting because people say, oh, it's like riding a bicycle. Once you do it, you never forget. It's not true. And you got to get back up there. And it's not like, it was tough. Anyway, I went to a few clubs and I said, okay, it's been a year, but it came back to me because I was doing it for so long. And I only had to do 20, 30 minutes, and it was fun. Somebody like that calls and wants to fly on a private jet to Hawaii, pay you a lot of money, and put you up in the Four Seasons. Yeah, I might have to take that gig again. That was great. Yeah. And this show I get paid nothing to do. This is how bored I am, that I'm entertaining all your imaginary listeners for nothing. I have nothing to plug,
Yeah, and, it's John on the text line. John Slay. I remember Bobby from Rodney Dangerfield's Young Comedian special on HBO back in the 80s. Wow. Were you on that Young Comedian special? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's when I was a young comedian. It was funny. I was on the 11th annual, and actually Rodney didn't host that one. I think that was the first one he didn't host. It was John Larroquette hosted it. But I remember as a young comic at the Improv, and the first time they did it, they had, 5 comics of my peers who were, more successful at the time. People like, Seinfeld, Roseanne, Louis Anderson. And I said, okay, well, you know what? They'll get to me really soon. They got to do the guys that have made it on the Tonight Show and have done more television. And then the next time around, I think it was like Dana Carvey and, Sam Kinison, whatever. I go, okay, well, that's 10 comics I've gone through. I got to be in the next round. I'm definitely going to be next year. I'm getting, and then they went through Paula Poundstone, and they went through, Gallagher, whatever. And then they go, well, they're going to get to me eventually. Finally, I do the 11th annual Young Comedian special. I was barely still a young comedian. And I said they went through 50 comics before they even got to me. Boy, that pissed me off.
Oh, that's funny. Well, thank you for bringing that up, John, one of our loyal listeners. And look, I love you, Bobby. You're just so, I don't know. I don't know how someone so acerbic, which is a ding word, by the way, so, with so many sharp edges could be so endearing. I don't know. It's weird, all in one guy, but I love your acting. I think you're immensely talented, and I so appreciate you.
By the way, let me just, let me leave you with this. For all the anti-Semitism that's going on in the country right now, for all you people that don't like Jews, don't forget we started Halloween. It was originally called Halloween. Okay, there you go. And Jews would celebrate it on November 1st today, when all the costumes were marked down to half price. Okay. There's my anti-Semitic joke coming from a Jew. Okay.
I love my Jewish boys and girls, and I love you, Bobby. Be good. Love you. Love having you here. Bobby Slayton, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Come on, Bobby Slayton. So long.
I love that guy.
Oh, yeah. This is for
the Mark Thompson Show.
All the Jewish boys and girls in the Middle Eastern, everyone across the Levant is what, the Persian boys and girls, we love you too.
That's not fake. That's real.
It's the Is that the
It's
move?
fantastic.
Yeah, that's the move. Yeah, right. It's festive.
Who's Mark Thompson?
It's the post-Halloween scene.
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Thank you very much. I'm flattered by. All right. Thank you for joining us. This is the Mark Thompson Show. I'm Mark, and here with Kim, also with John, and we are so excited to be talking about some pretty serious issues that are before the Supreme Court. That'll come in the second hour when David Katz joins us. Affirmative action on the docket, as you know. They're going to take up this case, and they're also going to, really, they provided Donald Trump, the former president, some cover on holding back his taxes from congressional review. So all of that's still to come.
Did you say taxes?
Did you say? Thank you. That's what I wanted to welcome our founding sponsor. He is the OG. He is tax attorney Steve Moskowitz, over 30 years in the Bay Area and beyond. Anywhere in America, Steve can help you, whether you're a business or an individual. Steve is a magnificent resource, and he stepped up to support our show early on. He approached us within the first day. So really, really excited to have him part of things because he's an elite sponsor, It was you or Cars for Kids, really, for us, Steve. That was the... So let's talk ERC and government money.
And, Mark, it's good to see you dancing again, too, by the way.
Thank you.
And we have still another service with ERC where we can help our clients. Here's a common situation. Somebody is just short of money and their suppliers have cut them off. And the supplier said, well, I'm not going to give you any more supplies because you haven't paid the bill. And the person says, but look, I didn't have the money to pay the bill and they were feeding the kids. How can I pay you back if you don't give me products to sell? What we can do is step in, contact the client's supplier and say, look, the client's given us permission to share what we've done for him in ERC. I'll give you a copy of the ERC form. The government is going to give them X number of dollars. The client is going to pay you out of that in full and have plenty left over. Please keep supplying them. And that is another way that you can get immediate benefit, and we can help you out of the ERC money.
So the ERC money, if you can check all the boxes, it comes without strings, right? It is a grant.
Absolutely, without strings. They just give you the money. And unlike with PPP, you had to spend most of it on payroll and rent in order to get forgiveness. With ERC, there's no strings. Do whatever you want with the money. So that's how we can go and help clients who are in a cash crunch by saying to suppliers, look, here's the funding source, the U.S. Treasury. You're going to get paid. Keep supplying my client so he can stay in business. That's still another service we can offer you related to ERC.
Love it. Reach Steve and see if there is a fit. If there is a fit, Steve will find it. 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. We're scrolling it across the screen. You can see it. Steve Moskowitz is 888-TAX-DEAL. Or you can reach him online, moskowitzllp.com. Steve, so appreciate your presence and appreciate your service, and look forward to talking to you next hour.
And I appreciate the great show that both you and Nikki do. Again, I'm a listener as well as a sponsor.
I love that. Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Yeah, thank you. Good stuff. We have stuff to do. I want to catch up with a couple of texts on the text line. So, yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
You can reach us on YouTube. That's how you connect with us every day, and you can power right into our YouTube chat and share whatever thoughts you have. And there's a community building on YouTube that's really cool. That's, I think, one of the huge upgrades of this platform is that community forums. Didn't have that at KGO. By the way, we have the KGO in Exile t-shirts at getmarkmerch.com. And they are selling well, and there's a limited number. So if you haven't gotten one yet and you want one, I encourage you to go to getmarkmerch.com, get a KGO in Exile t-shirt. And there's other merch there as well. You can see the fashionable tote bag is the favorite of everyone this fall season. And then there are the coffee mugs as well. By the way, there are other things too. But I just mentioned those two things because you can see them. What else do I have to mention, John? I feel like I'm leaving something out. Smash the like. Oh, there it is. That's right. The Mark Merch site, getmarkmerch.com. And you can
100% effective. How about that?
It is 100% effective. So do get the limited edition shirts because where's my Smash It?
Did you break it?
I might have broken it. Smash It. Where is it? Hang on.
Yes, you can.
No, I don't think that's it.
I'm sorry, really isn't sufficient.
That's not it.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
There it is.
That's it. That's it. The reason you have to like the video, please, is because it helps in the YouTube algorithm. So thank you. I've never been in a medium, on a show, hosted anything where I had to pitch for money unless it was a charity. You know, I've done telethons. I did telethons for PBS in the Bay Area. I did the KQED telethon. I've done the muscular dystrophy telethon. I used to do the Jerry's telethon. I mean, I've done a lot of fundraising for everything, for every manner of, of malady, the Alzheimer's fundraisers, the autism fundraisers, etc. Apart from that, I've never been in a position where I'm trying to raise money. Now, our lives depend on raising money. I mean, in other words, the life of this show depends on it. So please, if you can become a patron, we encourage you to do so. You can do it through the patreon.com/Mark Thompson Show. There's also a PayPal link. It's on our main website, which is themarkthompsonshow.com. So you can go to themarkthompsonshow.com and support us that way as well. As you do, we begin to build systems in, and those systems get better, and this show gets better. So I think we've done pretty well to ramp up so quickly, but we'll need your help to continue that momentum. And after Kim's news, I'll recognize those who've made donations today. You can hit the super sticker, which you'll find at the bottom of the... Where's the super sticker? The super chat is at the bottom, John, right, of the YouTube queue. And I think the
fabulous producer
super sticker, is it also at the bottom?
I believe it's in the same neighborhood. I haven't actually seen it.
Anyway, if you that's the key. Steve on the text line says, Mark,
bye.
No, he says it's really a mess.
Why don't you just text it?
That's what I wanted. Play Sarah McLachlan music when you're making the pitch.
Then she'll take all our money.
It could help, he says. Yeah. You know, believe me, if we could clear Sarah McLachlan music, we could get the copyright clearance, we'd do it.
And take our shoes off.
Yeah. Still waiting to cross the 700. A number of people watching on the stream. It's interesting, the number of people who watch live. There we go. Yeah, all right. Bravo. The number of people who watch live is just a component, right, in the overall thing. If the number of people who watch the video, if you watch, our videos are getting thousands of watches, so that's good. We need the likes also, because the likes in relation to how many people are watching, that's all critical stuff.
Nobody likes her.
Nobody likes her. The actual, where's that?
Nobody likes her.
That's it, right. The actual algorithm, I don't know, but I know that there is an importance to number of likes and number of people watch. Okay, so coming up next half hour, we're going to get an update on a true crime story, and there was breaking news in it, and it was not the Pelosi story. I mean, that in itself is chilling, and you see how the story's being used for every kind of conspiracy theory that's been debunked. I mean, everything from male prostitute to, this is a political ploy. It's utter insanity. But that said, this is something apart from all of that. There's a major break in a murder case. Courtney is walking into the studio now. She is my other half. She is a fan of this world of true crime. And so she came in excitedly yesterday to say that there'd been a break. She said, "Are you doing something on this?" I said, "Well, if you'll explain it, then we want to hear from you." So, Courtney, if you could stand by, please. Are you okay to stand by for a moment? Okay, we can hear you. All right. You can be heard. It's safe. This is a safe place. She's standing by. So we will do that after Kim's news, and we'll also acknowledge those of you who've been so generous It's the Mark Thompson Show live streaming on YouTube.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. The release of former President Donald Trump's tax returns to Congress temporarily delayed by the Supreme Court. Chief Justice John Roberts today stopping the IRS from turning over years of Trump's financial records to a House committee investigating how the agency audits presidential tax returns. He gave the House committee until November 10th to respond to that order. Former President Trump, unlike recent presidents, has refused to release his tax records. Republicans are leading Democrats on a general congressional ballot. A Wall Street Journal poll finding 46% of voters would vote for a GOP candidate versus 44% who would vote for a Democratic one. While that lead is within the margin of error, it's improvement for Republicans since August when Democrats led by 3 points. Several California voters are saying, hey, they've received more than one ballot in the mail ahead of next week's midterm elections. Shannon Bushy with the Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters says if you got more than one ballot, only submit one. Federal Reserve meeting today and tomorrow, another hike in interest rates likely. The Fed has carried out a series of rate increases in recent months in an effort to fight inflation. Analysts with Goldman Sachs predict the rate could be as high as 5% by March of next year. Some more developments today in the California attack on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband. The suspect about to face a judge for the first time, David DePape, will be arraigned on state and federal charges, including attempted murder. Police say he broke into the couple's San Francisco home last Friday and hit 82-year-old Paul Pelosi with a hammer. A criminal complaint reveals he also intended to take Speaker Nancy Pelosi hostage and break her kneecaps. She was in Washington, D.C. at the time. The Powerball jackpot will continue to grow because there was no winner in last night's drawing. So that means Wednesday's jackpot will be an estimated $1.2 billion. It marks the largest Powerball prize in more than 6 years.
Yeah,
gotta go get your 1.2 bill, people. Yeah.
1.2 bill, is that the jargon? 1.2 bill, baby. Come on. I need 1.2 bill, you know.
How much you win? 1.2 bill.
Mama, knock me down 1.2 bill. We can talk.
Long Island native singer Mariah Carey getting ready to publish her first children's book. The Christmas Princess features little Mariah. According to the book's publisher, the story is inspired by Carey's childhood. It's an unforgettable holiday story told by the Queen of Christmas herself. That book due out tomorrow. And this report sponsored by
Mariah's book is due out tomorrow, but it'll probably come out like 3 weeks later because that's kind of what she does when she's.
Is that what it is?
The show Sabar's Toast. Mariah will come on stage promptly at 7. Yeah, and then at 9:30 she shows up on stage.
Hey,
right?
you know,
Mariah's notorious for being about 2.5 hours late to her shows. So.
A diva can be late. A diva
gets
to
right.
show up.
The Queen of Christmas, as you call her, she can be late.
Yeah,
okay.
She can show up whenever she damn well wants to. This report sponsored by tax attorney, and you will pay your 1.2 bill. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sponsored by tax
Knock
attorney
mama down some money.
Steve Moskowitz for more than 30 years. Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses alike. If you need help with your taxes, give Steve a call, 888-TAX-DEAL, or you can catch him online, moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
I misspoke.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Why are you yelling?
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
There's never been anything like this.
We've never seen anything like it before.
Nobody has ever put something like this together that I've ever seen.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created.
God bless America. The end.
Someone did this to spoil our Christmas. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Sayonara, sucker!
You know what, Hal? You created havoc and chaos.
I don't think you should apologize for how you feel.
Do I hit it long? Is Trump strong? Huh?
Who is having that conversation?
Well, that is pretty cool. That's my astronaut outfit that John put up there on the live stream. If you're watching, fabulous producer John Daly put up.
Fabulous producer John Daly.
You can see me in my astronaut jumpsuit. That is the actual jumpsuit that the astronauts wear. I got it off of Amazon. I didn't realize they're so inexpensive. Yeah, not even $100. But that was enough to get by. We went as his and her astronauts last night to the Halloween party. Thank you all for being here live on our show, YouTube. We are YouTubing, and this is a great way you can stream the show. By the way, if you're on YouTube Premium, which I don't know what the cost is monthly on that. I want to say it's $15 now. But you can stream the show, and you don't have to watch the video. You can have it like on in the car or whatever it is, and it runs. You can have it on in the car anyway. But what I'm just saying is all these different things. I know. Huge shout out and big thank you to Deborah Brown.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah.
Super sticker. Yeah, Deborah. Cool. Yeah. The Dude for $10.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. From the 814, Erie, Pennsylvania. Great show. We need more progressive shows to help fend off the insanity from the right. And your voice is perfect for radio and podcast, by the way. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for the contribution and the super sticker. Jim Slayton with $4.99 super sticker. Yeah. Thank you, Jim.
Not confused with Bobby.
No, Bobby was in the first half hour, Jim. I hope you saw your brother Slayton. Celeste P. for the grooviest morning show ever for $4.99. Thank you. Really cool. Suzette R. DJ Panusu. Wow. Love the name. And I love the super sticker for $4.99.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is that
very cool? Eric Kennedy, regular listener and regular participant, $4. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for that. Very, very cool. You can hit the super sticker on YouTube, make a contribution. We run SJ, I guess that's San Jose. If I knew algorithms were going to have this much control over my life, I would have paid more attention in math classes as a youth. Exactly. I mean, who knew that? Well, I mean, the math people, they will control the world on one level or another. I guess it's going to rain, by the way, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was nice. We got kind of a reprieve on Halloween, but today it's going to, pour.
I so want the rain.
It's Walmart's Black
Yeah.
Friday
Oh,
deals
that's a roll in. Sorry. I wanted to bring up this major story that is breaking in the world of true crime. I mean, for lack of another way to put it. And we're going to talk about the Supreme Court and Trump and the taxes. We'll talk with David Katz after 11 o'clock. But now I wanted to mention a big break in this murder case. And I wasn't really following it, but my other half, Courtney, followed it very closely. And she joins us now, everyone. Courtney, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Hello, Courtney.
Hi.
Yeah.
Where are you? Come on over.
Courtney is, we don't have a second camera.
We're having, there are requests that you turn the camera away from you.
Or let's just get her standing next to you.
Courtney.
We gotta see
She
her.
will not, well, let me just explain. It's, first of all, there's a certain charming irony to two people who are not on camera being so insistent that I put Courtney in.
How are you?
Yeah. And
Fabulous producer.
yeah, so all I'm saying is this is something I don't want to we can discuss this another time, probably reveal some other big thing, but she doesn't want her picture taken at all. Like, we'll be in a group.
Oh, she's
and
gorgeous,
she
though.
will not stand there next to me. Now, maybe it's that she doesn't want to stand next to me. That's just occurring to me now.
It's definitely that.
Yeah. But I don't want you to think it's anything personal to our show. This is she carries this.
That's what I thought when I first saw your Instagram. I'm like, oh, she doesn't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
Aw,
So we were in a village in Laos, okay, and we're there with the whole village. So it's kind of a wide shot. We're there with like maybe 30 people in the picture. And it was a terrific trip, and we just finished this ceremony that they do there. And so she's there with the group, and they take a picture. So I said, oh, my God, I'm so excited that we were here. I really want to post this picture. She said, if you do, blur my face. So I had to blur her. It was the weirdest thing. People are thinking, people ask me, why do you blur her face? Isn't that insulting to her? Insulting? She asked me to do it.
It's because she's in witness protection, and she doesn't want you to know.
Yeah. Anyway, but she's been good enough to sit in with us now. Courtney, the story is one of this Delphi murder. It's the Delphi murders. 2 young girls were killed, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So, of course, I love true crime podcasts. You know that. And I was so surprised last week when they arrested somebody as a suspect.
Now, why were you surprised? It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. The murders happened February 13th of 2017.
I see.
And what was really interesting about these murders was that the suspect was caught not only on camera, but through a video. You could hear an audio recording of the murderer telling the girls sort of infamously down the hill. And he had taken them down this hill where, unfortunately, he proceeded to kill these 2 young girls. So
they were 14, is that what you said?
Yeah. So there was 2 girls. One of the girls' names was Abigail Williams. She was 13, and then Liberty German. She was 14. And this happened in Delphi, Indiana, which is a very small town. I think there was 3,000 people that lived there when the murders happened. It's just north of Indianapolis, and it happened in broad daylight. I think that the photos were taken at around 2:00 in the afternoon on Snapchat. And from what I understand, everything had happened by 3:30 in the afternoon.
So go ahead.
In a public area. So, but it was just heartbreaking. And there was a lot of attention on these murders, not only because the girls were so young, but because there was this shot of one of the girls on the bridge, and just behind her in the distance is the murder. And
wow,
so
that's just insanely eerie and awful.
It really is. And
so how did they catch this guy then?
You know, they're not really saying very much about his arrest.
There were more than 70,000 tips that were submitted since the murders in 2017. 70,000.
Yeah, he is 50 years old. His name is Richard Allen, and he's a pharmacy tech. He's a husband and has a child who's an adult. There's actually a photo of his daughter on the bridge, sort of in the same location of where Abby, one of the young girls, was photographed.
Oh my God, that's
on
just
the bridge.
chilling.
Yeah,
that's
which
just
is chilling.
Yeah.
And there's actually a photo of him in a bar, and just behind him is the sketch of the suspect. So some very strange
he was at a bar where
yeah.
the actual photo, the sketch artist had put it together based on descriptions, and he's in a picture with that behind him?
That just behind him, yeah. I know. And, you know, they're not saying very much. They've sealed any documents around his arrest. And as I know it, that'll be for at least 30 days. And then the pretrial conference is January 13th, 2023. And they expect the murder trial to begin in March of next year. So
it was interesting in looking at some of the stuff that you were showing me that the sketch artist actually, and I guess these sketches are based on descriptions from witnesses, this sort of thing. I mean, I don't know where the sketch artist came up, but anyway, the sketch artist comes up, of course, as you know, with the suspect's picture, and it looks really very much like the suspect. I mean, it's really a triumph of those sketch artists that they were able to approximate his actual look.
Yeah, because even as close a resolution as they could get to, or as high a resolution as they could get with finding him in the shot that was taken, it was actually posted on Snapchat. It still was difficult to see his face exactly, but you could see roughly like the shape and sort of the size of his body. And there were some, I think, parts of the photo that they could distinguish enough to be able to create a sketch. But it's really interesting. And then this haunting audio that was captured through Libby having the foresight of putting her video on her phone and capturing that so that that would, of course, be able to be used as evidence for, unfortunately, what happened. So,
wow. I know the entire community, I'm just reading about how the effect on the community was profound. People were scared. People were afraid to go out. People were afraid to have their kids go out. I mean, these girls are 14, 13 and 14, I think. So the idea of somehow, you normally wouldn't be afraid of having, like young teens go out. But I mean, it was a small community. And this guy was getting away with it for a long time.
I mean, there was apparently 3,000 people that lived in Delphi at the time. And I think on February 14th, about 500 people showed up to search around the bridge at like 6 a.m., which was the day after they went missing, which tells you how much the community came together to look for these poor innocent girls.
They found their bodies there at the near the river, near the water.
Yeah, so they found the bodies about half a mile away in a culvert. So several of the searchers, I think there was 2 or 3 of them, found the bodies. They started to find articles of clothing, and then just after that, they found the bodies.
Just awful.
But they've sealed the autopsy reports and everything. So there's a lot of rumor going around about exactly what happened to them. That I won't repeat because it is rumor, but we can only hope that justice will be served in January.
Yeah.
So,
Courtney, thank you. Any questions from Kim or
Kim? How are you?
Yeah, or John? Do you have any?
I feel like I've learned a lot about this story, but I was thinking of Courtney last night with a whole different story. We were trick or treating, and a friend pointed at a pink mansion and said, "See that house right there? That's where a lady died." And I said, "Oh. What happened?" She said, "Well, they originally thought she fell down the stairs. It turns out her husband pushed her, and he was an ophthalmologist, and he was arrested and sent to prison." And I was like, "Oh, Courtney would love this story."
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She can,
I know. I'm sure I've heard it.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
That's a podcast. I always tell Mark if he covers more murder, I would listen to his podcast.
How dare you? Courtney, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
She needs to have a weekly segment where she talks about a true crime story.
Yeah, that may not be a bad idea. We could go with that. I think that's not a...
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thanks to everybody who's joining us in the YouTube chat in one way or another. Love your input. What's her favorite detective or murder show? That would have been good. I just saw that now. Well, for the next time, I'll ask her. Courtney, what's your favorite murder show? That was a good question from one of the listeners.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sort of partial to Dateline because of the
Josh.
family connection. Yeah, Josh and I were actually talking about the Delphi murders over the weekend. But I really like Dateline. I actually listened to Down the Hill podcast. I should mention that when I was doing some research last night on Delphi just to refresh my memory on the case. But there are a ton of great podcasts. And then, of course, I love Dateline. So.
Oh, there's the answer then. Yeah. Hey, we are awkward with pushing another podcast, but I think you have to when it comes to true crime. All right, Courtney, everyone, thank you. Thank you very much. Do I have time, if I was producer John Daly? I could do some law and disorder. There's kind of big news in the Bay Area in the world of law and disorder. Can I do a little bit?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
In the criminal justice system, the people...
Pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care...
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law, you're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Now, the thing that's happening in the Bay Area that's pretty intense is this Laurie Smith. For those who don't know, she's the sheriff who resigned amid this play-to-play corruption trial. First female sheriff in the state. You know, you're kind of rooting for her. I was anyway. And turns out she's, allegedly corrupt. Allegedly, I suppose, gets a ding. Santa Clara County Sheriff Lori Smith told the Board of Supervisors she was leaving effective yesterday. She resigned her office effective immediately. She is on trial for corruption. Essentially, as I understood it, she was basically giving people, in return for money and favors, she was giving them favors, meaning, I think, support, money that ended up in her campaign coffers, or wasn't that really? It was a money thing, wasn't it?
Also an open carry permit.
Well, that's what I was about to say. In addition to that, it was open carry permits. So she was essentially, she was granting the open carry permits, but I think that they were giving her money in support of
so this doesn't have anything to do with Batmobiles?
No, this does not. This is not the
that's
Atherton
San Mateo
crew.
County.
That's San Mateo County. The leading candidate for her job. Yeah, go ahead.
The allegations including granting of sealed carry permits in exchange for campaign donations, a lack of transparency in reporting gifted San Jose Sharks tickets, and a mismanagement of the Santa Clara County Jail.
Yeah, so that's the.
My God!
Yeah, I know that's not good. And so she resigned under that pressure. But this is now a court case, I guess, is the reason we're doing it in law and disorder. The identity of Massachusetts' oldest unidentified homicide victim has now been revealed. Should have mentioned this to Courtney. Almost 50 years after the infamous murder took place. Ruth Marie Terry, a woman born in Tennessee, 37 at the time of her death. Her identity was revealed at a press conference. She was found in the sand dunes, roughly a mile east of the Race Point Ranger Station in Cape Cod. And she was probably there a couple of weeks before they found her body. Kind of grim. But they hadn't ID'd the body, imagine, in all that time. It's been 50 years.
The Lady of the Dunes.
Yeah, it's kind of eerie.
That sounds like a TV series.
It does. Lady of the Dunes definitely sounds like a TV series. Just saw the first episode of the new season of White Lotus last night. That's on Netflix. And it starts, spoiler alert, but it starts this way, with a death. Mm-hmm. I'll just say that. So if you want to check it out. We liked it. Yeah, murder. So there is a ban now going into effect on what they call promoting abortion. This is at the University of Idaho. They got a strange email from their employer, the staff and faculty at the University of Idaho. It was an email sent out by university lawyers, which is why it's in law and disorder. Professors were told, in accordance with the state's new abortion ban, again, this is in Idaho, they are now prohibited from a large swath of activities. No longer allowed to promote abortion is what they call it. No longer allowed to counsel in favor of abortion is what they say. No longer allowed to tell students or anyone else where to get an abortion. They're no longer allowed to dispense emergency contraception like Plan B. State law now forbids any state resources or state employees from spending time promoting or advertising either abortion or services for the prevention of conception. The university is not going to be dispensing any birth control anymore either. This is at the University of Idaho. The email said the university can continue to provide condoms so long as those condoms are distributed for the purposes of preventing disease transmission only, not for birth control. University of Idaho students are still able to obtain contraception, but not from any university employees. That's the key, right? That you're an employee of the state, and the state law is against that. Prescriptions will only be available at the student health centers that are operated by a private contractor. So this is what's happening in Idaho. And there can be penalties. I mean, they can prosecute for a felony if you violate the edict of the university. So that's pretty, I think, it's a sign of things to come, to be honest. It really is. An Arizona man who flagged down a deputy to confess killing his stepfather is accused of shooting him in a dispute about what? What could make you want to kill your own stepfather?
Money.
In an argument.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think money. That's what I would think.
Drugs.
It's the Bible. It's the Bible. They were arguing over the Bible. Yeah.
Wow.
The Arizona man who flagged down a deputy in the middle of the road last week to confess to killing his stepfather is accused of shooting him in a dispute about the Bible. J. Albert Stevens, he's 52. He killed his stepfather, Mark Kilborn, 61, after an argument in which Kilborn accused Stevens of never having read the Bible or understood it. The argument escalated in the garage of the home, and Stevens then went to his bedroom. He apparently was stewing for several hours. Then he confronted Kilborn with a .40 caliber handgun in the living room.
Well, you have to obey your father, but I don't think it says anything about stepfather.
I mean, it is.
See, if he had read it, he would know this.
Yeah, it's a technicality.
I guess that's right. Yeah, I guess that's right. Pretty brutal. Pretty brutal to go down over an argument over, I don't know, this Bible, for all the good it may do, it seems to do a lot of things that ain't so good. Yeah. An Omaha man is accused of 5 counts of terroristic threats after he conducted an active shooter drill without warning. Yeah, this is in Douglas County, Nebraska. He conducted an active shooter drill without all the employees being aware that it was a drill. So this guy, John Channel's his name. He's 27. He's taken into custody. What he did is counted as a terroristic threat, right? It did terrorize everybody. According to court documents, the incident happened 5 days after a white gunman in military gear attacked shoppers and workers at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York, killing 10 black people. Remember that? You remember that incident in Buffalo?
Yeah.
Investigators are saying that Channels identified himself as an Offutt civilian police officer in court documents. Real cops responded to the scene. They determined that he was firing 9mm blanks from a handgun and had staged unidentified individuals throughout the Catholic Charities location to act as victims to be viewed by employees as they fled the building. Investigators interviewed the Catholic Charities employees, determined that a number of people at the location were unaware that it was a training exercise. They thought the shots being fired and the victims they encountered were part of a real active shooter event. So in so doing, this guy has created a real terrorist threat. He's being prosecuted now in Omaha, and the coordinator for Catholic Charities, Mike Welna, hired this guy at the suggestion of a security officer for the building. So he was hired by this Catholic Charities organization, but
they're very thorough.
I guess it's really not.
Do that background check.
It's pretty weak, man. Gotta say, it's pretty weak. I don't know. But he is being prosecuted on a terroristic threat. So that's Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
So Donald Trump, as you know, has been trying to withhold his taxes from public view and from the view of anyone, certainly in Congress, for some time. The Supreme Court helped him in that effort, and that's breaking news. We'll talk to David Katz about that next. Also, the big Supreme Court case that's being heard as well is about affirmative action. Should you be able, I ask you, should you be able to integrate ethnicity and race in the evaluation of whether or not a student qualifies to matriculate at a university, to, enroll at the university? Matriculate's a ding word, yeah. So we'll all weigh in on this, and we'll discuss it with David Katz, just the constitutionality and the legality. If Katz can work his the technical side of it, it can sometimes be a little tricky with David. But hopefully we'll get him on next as we continue. It's the Mark Thompson Show live on YouTube. Kim's News next. Thanks to Steve Moskowitz, our super sponsor, 888 Tax Deal for any tax questions. Steve, we love him. and we want you to love him too. And such a guy of, I would say, kind of an elite competence deserves a look from you. 888-TAX-DEAL. So we continue after 11 with David.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Who's Mark Thompson?
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL. The Supreme Court temporarily blocking Congress from getting former President Donald Trump's tax records. This comes a day after Trump's lawyers filed an emergency application with the Supreme Court asking for that delay. House Democrats are requesting years of tax returns from Trump to look at how the IRS investigates all past presidents. Brian Kemp still leading the race for governor of Georgia in the latest poll. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution releasing its latest midterm poll yesterday, which shows the Republican incumbent has a 7-point lead over Democrat Stacey Abrams. Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker are still even in the U.S. Senate race, but that one could go to a runoff. Pfizer says it will seek FDA approval this year for its RSV vaccine. The drug company says it has enough promising data on its vaccine that it will end enrollment in its study and submit for approval now. RSV is a respiratory virus that usually causes mild cold-like symptoms, but it can also cause serious illness in infants and older adults. Groups monitoring ballot drop boxes in Arizona in the run-up to the midterm elections may be breaking the law. Department of Justice in a court filing yesterday said some of the group's actions are raising serious concerns over illegal voter intimidation, violation of the Voting Rights Act. The groups claim what they're doing is actually to prevent voter fraud, but it looks like maybe the fraud might be something going on with them. We'll see. Alameda County supervisors voted unanimously to auction off the former Oakland Raiders headquarters and training facility. Supervisors believe the 100,000 plus square foot headquarters and a neighboring training facility can bring a minimum bid of $35.8 million. Bids due by the end of June. And Senator Chris Murphy wants the federal government to investigate the role that Saudi Arabia played in Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter. The Connecticut Democrat citing national security concerns. A Saudi prince helped Musk finance the $44 billion acquisition through a parlay that makes Saudi entities the second largest shareholder in Twitter.
Saudi Arabia pays cash.
Yeah, yes, they do. And a lot of Taylor Swift, now the first artist to lock down the top 10 spots of the Billboard Hot 100 in 1 week. All top 10 going to Taylor Swift. Anti-Hero tops the list. It's only contested by other songs from her latest record. The previous record holder was Drake, who managed to score 9 of the top 10 spots on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1 week. But no, Taylor Swift, she's got all 10. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses alike. If you need help with your taxes, give Steve a call, 888-TAX-DEAL, or he's online too at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, I'm very unhappy with everything I've heard today on your show.
Yes. Good morning, all. It is the Mark Thompson Show. I'm Mark. Got the whole crew for you. Kim, you just heard our newscast.
Kim, how are you?
And fabulous producer John Daly.
Fabulous producer John Daly.
You are also, look at this from Sharon Kidd. Love the show, Mark, Kim, and the rest of you from Willits. And it is raining in Willits. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Willits. Come on, Sharon. $50? That is awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We need money, sadly, to keep the lights on, to keep everybody employed. Super sticker on YouTube from Kirsty. Kirsty, what
Big
up?
shout out.
Thank you for that, for 20. Really appreciate that. And Kim Rossline, 1999 super sticker.
Thank you
what
so
up,
much.
Kim? Thank you, Kim. That's really great. Michael Farley, $8.10. I see what you did, Michael. I see what you did.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Nancy Boyd for $4.99 a super
Thank you so
sticker.
much.
Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate the super stickers. Appreciate the super chats. Always you can support our show. Happy Tuesday, Kim and Mark. Elwin, a daily contributor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Elwin. Yeah.
What's up?
Also, a very cool name, Elwin. Yeah.
Elwin.
Thank you, guys. It really makes a difference. You can contribute through the super stickers. You can contribute through the super chat. If you contribute on super chat, we will read your chat comment 100% of the time. So that's another way you can support us. That's in the moment. If you're watching on YouTube, you have to be watching on the platform of YouTube. I got an email today saying, I'm watching through your website, YouTube, and I can't like and I can't chat. No, you have to go to YouTube. If you click through where it says YouTube, you'll go to YouTube. Then you can chat, you can like, and you can contribute even after the fact. If you're watching us from earlier, so you would be later looking back on what happened earlier, you'll see a little heart with a $sign. You can contribute that way as well. And of course, our Patreon site is up at our website, themarkthompsonshow.com. Click right through to Patreon and become a patron. All our patrons' names are listed at the end of the show, and we're really grateful for all of you who stepped up. It really is going to take a community to keep us on the air, and so I so appreciate your help that way. Any way you can find to contribute really makes a difference. And the last thing I'll say is we have a PayPal link. If you don't want Patreon and you don't want any of these other ways I've mentioned, you can click onto the PayPal link, which is on our website again, themarkthompsonshow.com, and by clicking on PayPal, you'll be there, and you can leave us whatever you like. And so some of you have been really generous and have paid the fees. There are these processing fees that they ask for that we normally have to pay, and you guys, some of you have offered to pay those as well. So really appreciate all of your support, all the ways that you can find to contribute, themarkthompsonshow.com. So, all right. Now I got so much to talk about with this guy, and I've been mentioning it all morning, all the different things. I love that he joins us. We've inherited him from Pat Thurston. It was like I coveted him for so long. I told Pat Thurston that David Katz may be, if not the best, one of the best guests ever on KGO. I just think he's terrific. Great takes.
Covet is both a Bible word and a ding word, so I think you should get 2 dings.
What was the ding? What was the word I used?
Covet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Yeah. All right, that's cool. But welcome him now. He is David Katz, everybody. Come on. Now I hear echo on David Katz. David, why am I hearing echo?
I don't know.
He's got to plug in the headset.
Too much of an echo, huh?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
too much. Yeah.
You got to turn off.
the sound.
This is the shakedown period with David Katz. Actually, shot looks really good.
Oh, well, thank you.
But it's a. And what do you think that could be, John? John Daly.
Fabulous producer, John Daly.
I'm not there.
But I
think his speakers are too loud. He has headphones that would work better. Otherwise, I can mute him while you're.
So, David, get headphones if you would, please. And
or I
while
could
you
fly
get
down
headphones.
to LA. We could figure it out.
I like the ocean picture in the background, though. That's
he looks
cool.
great, but we've got to have him plug in. Do you have headphones, David?
Right now, I don't think. You just really can't hear me, huh?
Oh, wait, that's good. No, it's not.
The problem is I have to mute him while you're talking.
Oh, okay. I see. Well, okay, then let's try it that way. Yeah, I'll leave it to you. You're going to do all the muting, right, John? So I'll just ask the question.
Right.
And then David will talk, but you'll mute me. So I won't maybe have as many follow-ups in the moment. I won't interrupt, but I can still talk to David. So David Katz, former assistant U.S. attorney, and joins us now. He'll have headphones next week, but it's so cool that you joined us on Tuesday. This is the spot that was occupied regularly by Pulitzer winner David K. Johnson, who's away for the moment. He'll be back in about 6 weeks. But we want to keep you because we adore you. And the Supreme Court is front and center today. First of all, I want to just quickly mention what I was talking about the first hour, which is, I guess they've given cover to Donald Trump in the tax returns. Can you weigh in on that, please, David Katz?
Sure. Let me just make sure that you folks can hear me. You can, fine?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you. I had an assistant helping me, but it sounds like the sound is coming through okay. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, yes, they have given cover to the Supreme Court today. The Supreme Court has given cover to Trump. And it's normal that they would delay for about a week or 10 days. That's what Chief Justice Roberts has done, so that Trump's team or the Justice Department, I guess the Justice Department, can file a response. I'm sure the Justice Department will file it very promptly. But then the big question is going to be, does the Supreme Court rule on it after they've had the response from the Justice Department very timely? Because Trump is trying to run out the clock. And if the House goes over to the Republicans will simply withdraw the subpoena. Now, people may be surprised, how does that work? There's a statute which says that the Tax Writing Committee of the House Ways and Means Committee, that its chairperson has the right to ask for the tax return of anyone in America as part of the oversight duty, as part of the tax code drafting duties of the Ways and Means Committee. The chairperson can ask for that, and the chairperson does. But if they control the House, they'll also control who's the head of the House Ways and Means Committee. So once the Republicans put a new head in there, that new head will withdraw that request for Trump's tax returns, and he will have run out the clock if the House goes Republican. And so the only way to stop that is for the U.S. Supreme Court to put on its big boy pants, its big girl pants, and to say he's running out the clock again. The federal district court ruled against him. The federal appellate court ruled against him. And he's only trying to run out the clock until maybe January 3rd, when there'll be a new Republican head of the House Ways and Means Committee. And he will have gotten away with never turning over his tax returns. That's what he's aiming for. And let's hope that there are 6 justices on the Supreme Court who, Republicans or not, 3 of them appointed by Trump or not, are not going to let them be played in this way that will just disparage all respect that people might still have for the U.S. Supreme Court, because he will have just played them in a way that no litigant should be able to play the Supreme Court, especially not a former president of the United States, throwing his weight around and it looking to the public like, well, he appointed 3 of them, so he got his way from those 3 and another couple of conservatives. And so all they have to do is not decide. There'll be nothing left to decide, Mark, if the Republicans take the House after January 3rd. They'll withdraw the request. And no, it can't go over to the Senate, even if the Senate stays Democratic, because it's a particular power in the chairperson of the House Ways and Means Committee. I don't believe that the statute gives that power to the head of the Senate Finance Committee.
Yeah, it's an odd fact, but that's exactly, David is so right about this. They're sort of very specific things that the Senate can do and the House can do, and this is one of the specific things the House can do. I'm wondering if what you're talking about, the stalling tactics, which we were all very familiar with from the Trump organization, which they've used so effectively, it's an unholy strategy, but it has been effective. I'm wondering if you feel as though this strategy, which has likely been employed on the side in terms of dealing with the Justice Department, I'm talking about with Merrick Garland's crew, whether you feel that also might carry the day. So the Republicans win the House. I mean, again, that would then change the arithmetic on this, and he'd no longer have to submit those tax returns. But the Justice Department, unrelated to all these investigations, unrelated to Congress, these are charges that will come out of the Justice Department. I'm wondering if you could handicap, in essence, that strategy as it might relate to some of that coming out of the Justice Department.
Let me just digress with one example of how Trump has run out the clock. If you remember, one of the people who was trying to get a hold of his tax returns was the DA in New York City. He ran out the clock. That DA had some very diligent staff, you'll recall, who went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. They did a great job. They beat Trump like a drum twice in the U.S. Supreme Court. And by the time they finally got the tax returns, the New York City DA, that DA had left office. The new DA, I guess, is worried about street crime or other things that a DA needs to be worried about. And the DA, remember, is not proceeding with that criminal investigation that his predecessor would have probably proceeded with, would have indicted Trump had he had the tax returns. But in that instance, Trump got away with it running out the clock, even though the DA won twice in the U.S. Supreme Court, but it took 2 years and the term of that DA then ended. Now, regarding can I get back to your question, Mark? I'm sorry, I just wanted to get that in.
No, of course, that's great. So I was just asking about his in relation to the Justice Department and what we feel sort of imminent Garland charges that will come out of the Justice Department toward the Trump organization. I wonder if you could handicap for us how this strategy of delaying or what other strategies legally he might employ in dealing with that.
Well, I mean, if the House and the Senate go overwhelmingly Republican, that doesn't, of course, end the tenure of the Attorney General. Merrick Garland will still be in office, but there's all kinds of ways that they can harass the Department of Justice, try to blow back at the Department of Justice. So everyone who cares, I think, about the rule of law and what's going to happen with this Trump investigation really needs to get out and vote. It's just a week away, and boy, do elections matter. We're going to talk about the affirmative action decision too, and of course there was Dobbs that overruled Roe v. Wade, and that was years of Republicans getting out the vote. That was the evangelicals and the other ones getting out the vote, election after election. And before you know it, they control the U.S. Supreme Court 6-3. And it was woe to Roe v. Wade. And I think it's going to be woe to affirmative action as we've understood it in the colleges and universities. And then from there, maybe in the high schools, especially the selective high schools. But I just think that the Department of Justice won't have any trouble getting the tax returns. I was an assistant U.S. attorney, and if it's relevant to a criminal investigation, there's a form that you fill out, and the IRS has to turn over the tax returns. So I think months ago, Merrick Garland has gotten all of Trump's tax returns, and I'm sure they are really eye-opening, both eyes wide open, because you remember there was one sheet that leaked, and from the one page of 1 year of taxes of Trump, he'd lost more money, I think, than anyone else in American history. He wasn't America's biggest winner. Trump was America's biggest loser. And yet his base looks at him like he's some kind of financial wizard. He was America's biggest loser. He lost $100 million, at least according to him, and the tax return that he must have signed under penalty of perjury. He lost $100 million in 1 year. And so if the tax returns ever come out, they're going to be incredibly embarrassing. It won't leak through the grand jury process because that would actually be a crime and no one should leak them. But at some point, Trump, I do believe, is going to be indicted. I believe there's going to be some tax charges, and I believe that his tax records will become public. And the people who are already stunned by how this man could have ever been president or held himself out as a financial guru are going to be even more stunned than we already are.
Yeah, I fear that, from the standpoint of electability, there's a weird kind of bulletproof quality that Trump has, and his reputation, which I think could be sullied in so many different ways. He's beholden to foreign interests. He's been compromised and has a pay-to-play corruption side that I think has been manifest in his last administration. He did get rich after he became president. I mean, it seems like all the money came in, and now he set up, as you know, this a PAC, a super PAC, effectively, that can siphon off money into all of these different Trump expenditures. In fact, that's where it's going. It's not going into any kind of re-election, exploratory anything. In tracking that money, I think Farenthold at the Washington Post did a really good job of tracking where that money was, at least the money that he could follow. And it was going toward these things that would personally enrich Trump, as opposed to being any kind of political donation to other Republicans and this kind of thing, as was stated in the original fundraiser. Now, to the Supreme Court and affirmative action. So they're hearing this case. It involves Harvard and North Carolina. Bring us up to speed, and I wonder if you could just kind of frame its significance. You hinted at it. I mean, it cuts beyond just universities and colleges, I guess.
Well, it's deja vu all over again, especially for me, because I was a law student. Then it was called Boalt Hall, now Berkeley Law, at the time that Bakke was taking place, Bakke versus the University of California, the Regents. And many of the law professors that I had in class were writing the briefs for the University of California because Bakke had tried to get into the medical school at the University of California at Davis. And so he was the plaintiff, and the university that I was going to law school at was the defendant, or the university system was the defendant in the case. Through some procedural oddities that I won't get into. I believe Bakke eventually got a stay, and he himself became a doctor. But the case remained ripe, and it went up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and there was a 4-4 tie, basically, whether what some detractors call reverse discrimination, what has had the name since JFK and LBJ as affirmative action, was proper, whether this was discrimination, no matter how good its goals were, was this discrimination or not. 4 of the justices were prepared to say that it was discrimination against the white applicants who couldn't get in. 4 of them were prepared to say that it was affirmative action, that it was necessary to rectify past discrimination, to sort of even the playing field. It was needed at least for a while. The swing vote was Justice Powell, and Justice Powell said that even though discrimination is obviously a very bad thing as a principle, the countervailing principle is the need for diversity. And so, we now have the word diversity bandied about. There's what some people who are detractors call the diversity industrial complex. There's all these like quips and snide remarks made all over this very contentious issue. But Powell's vote was decisive. And so diversity is what we're looking for. And then there's all of these arguments since then, including there was this famous Texas case 19 years ago, which basically allowed the kind of affirmative action that the University of Texas, I believe it was at the law school, had. Other interesting things for your listeners and viewers is that we had a referendum, a statewide initiative in this state that actually banned affirmative action, the use of affirmative action in the professional schools. So medical school, dental school, other professional schools, it was barred. The voters actually voted against it, which was very surprising, of course, to some people. It's a very hot, contentious issue. It's also an issue, of course, among Asian Americans. And in fact, Asian American students are the ones bringing the present case to the U.S. Supreme Court, or an organization of Asian American students, because the impact, and this is what Alito says, it's a zero-sum game. The impact has been certainly, year after year recently, detrimental to Asian Americans as a group, because if there's 100 places and 10 are, the goal of the university is to fill 10 of them, let's say, with African Americans, and another, let's say, 10 of them with Hispanic Americans and Native Americans. And then you see in the same year that many Asian Americans are denied admission to the school. And then the question was in the U.S. Supreme Court, Mark, what is this diversity? And so people like Thomas act like they don't even know what diversity is. They don't understand it. He's diverse. He's an African American who's adamantly against affirmative action, although he was himself, don't kid yourself, the beneficiary of affirmative action to get where he is today. But he's certainly diverse in his opinion. Is that the kind of diversity they're talking about? In my opinion, this should be a remedy for past discrimination. There's a reason for, as Justice Kagan, one of the moderates, liberals, one of the three, as she said, for people who've been kicked in the teeth by society for not just decades, but generations and centuries under slavery, there is a compelling reason to give a leg up, a break. And so if the class would have been 3 out of 100 African Americans, and these goals and these programs end up being 8, that's a laudable goal, and it's one that is not reverse discrimination, but it's an appropriate remedy. But of course, the people in the zero-sum game of admission, when there are 100 places, the people who didn't get the 5 places because there were 8 African Americans and not 3 are complaining. And I think they're going to win in the U.S. Supreme Court on this issue, and they're going to find that diversity is not compelling. They're also going to say that we've tried it all these years since Bakke. We've tried it for 19 years since the Texas case. Justice O'Connor joining the people who would have kept affirmative action in place, who did keep affirmative action in place in the universities, said, we need to try this for another 25 years. We can't be doing this forever. It does become discrimination. At some point, whether reverse or not, it becomes discrimination. But 25 years, it should be about 25 years. Well, now it's 19 years. So you have all these questions like by Alito, which says, tell me, Harvard, When are you going to stop this program? When are you going to have done enough? And of course, Harvard didn't want to answer the question because think about it, Mark, how would you answer the question? And the answer may be that it will, be used less as time goes on, but it will still be used. And if the Supreme Court rules the way I think it will, and they say that diversity is not a compelling goal, and that these two programs at Harvard and the University of North Carolina are not valid, that's not the end. They'll come up with new programs at all these universities, and the question will be whether they pass muster. They may do things like give an add-on to people with low socioeconomic backgrounds, people who came up the hard way, people who came up from poverty. But there's more people statistically who are white who came up the hard way, came up through poverty, are in Appalachia, are in slums, are all over the place, than there are Blacks and Hispanics. And so statistically, you don't get the effect of helping the groups that you're trying to. You also have the anomalies that people always point out, like Reagan used to talk about the welfare Cadillac recipient, the welfare recipient who drove a Cadillac. There might have been 5, but of course, that's all he wanted to talk about. They talk about the person who's African-American, whose dad was a diplomat, and who ends up getting into some school over affirmative action. And then they give you the other side, some poor guy who, grew up, above the elevated subway. His parents worked around the clock. And that example that they give on the other side is often Asian. In New York City, you look at the Asian Americans who say that they are having a really hard time getting admitted despite their merit and their hard work. In New York City, specialized high schools at these universities like Harvard. They're not all people who came over from Asia with a lot of money and studied here. They're really working class. Their parents have really busted their behinds to help their kids. And they say, well, now they're getting a special advantage, Mark, because they have these tutorials, they get extra tutorials. But, if extra tutorials are so helpful, let's get them in the poorer schools. Let's get them in the minority schools. Maybe we need to teach to the test, right? Maybe we need to teach to the test in those things. So there is less of an advantage, because I totally support the goals of affirmative action. I actually was a law clerk to an African-American judge. In his particular case, I don't think he got any advantages from that system. He came up through the Army and the JAG Corps. He got hired by Bobby Kennedy before there ever was affirmative action at the Department of Justice. He was a person who, by any standards, came up through his merits. But he was a supporter of affirmative action before he passed away. I'm a supporter of affirmative action, but I think this particular case, Mark, I think they're going to rule probably 6-3. Chief Justice Roberts has been an opponent of affirmative action for quite a while. He has a famous quote: I think the way that we should stop discrimination on the basis of race is to stop discriminating on the basis of race. So I think he's a lost vote. I think Harvard and the University of North Carolina are both going to have their programs struck down probably next May or June. They always hold the hot ones to the end, right?
And your suggestion is that there'll be other programs to replace these. So diversity, and because we're also talking about diversity. It's not just, who can get in. It's the consistency and texture of your students and the kind of environment that these schools are trying to build. They're trying to build not just a lily white environment, but typically, at least in the case of many of these universities and colleges, they're trying to build a cross-section. They're trying to build an environment in which students can be exposed to different cultures and different people and different races and different ethnicities and religions, this kind of thing. It would seem to me, a healthy educational environment. Are you suggesting that other programs, I think you had kind of alluded to that earlier, might come into play such that they'll still be able to achieve some of those diversity goals?
Well, yes. I don't think that the universities who feel very strongly about this, as I do, as being a laudable goal, will try to achieve it some other way. Like I said, the Supreme Court has suggested some in their questioning on Monday. Some of the conservative justices said, well, why don't you use a socioeconomic test? And as I say, the problem with a socioeconomic test, yes, you get a certain kind of diversity. That's certainly true. I think the schools try to get that. I think if you're a poor white kid from Appalachia who's really come up by his or her bootstraps, I think they want you in that school. If you've got, let's say, military service, if you speak 2 or 3 languages, if there's something, really unusual, if you're disabled now for a while under diversity, they were, maybe they still are, if you're LGBTQ, right? All kinds of diversity. And of course the schools want that. But I think trying to get it the way they've been trying to get it with anything that looks like an add-on for being a Black, Hispanic, or Native American, I think is going to be more suspect in the future programs. I think socioeconomic doesn't really get you the goal of increasing as much as these schools would like to, the Black, Hispanic, and Native American component, number of students in the school. And I think that, they said some questions. I thought they were kidding, where they said, well, if they got rid of the legacy admissions, if they got rid of some of these set-asides for donors, come on. These private universities are not going to get rid of set-asides for donors' kids, and they're not going to get rid of legacy admissions. Who are we kidding? That's not, yes, you would have less white people. They're probably predominantly white people who get in on that basis. One thing that was interesting about Baki and the 100 places at the medical school back in the late 70s, 10 were set aside for doctors' kids, 10 were set aside for state legislators' kids here in California. And Baki didn't challenge either one of those because he didn't have a good equal protection challenge. He figured his best equal protection challenge was that he was not allowed to get in. And he was very close. He knew that but for, let's say, 5 or 10 minority admissions, he would have gotten in. I think that's why ultimately he got his stay that allowed him to start his education and complete his education. But I just think that from everything they said at the oral argument, it's going to be 6-3 to strike down these particular programs, and obviously the new programs may be less diverse. And it'll trickle down from there, I think, into the high schools. I went to a specialized high school in New York. I had to pass a test for it called Bronx High School of Science, and it's been very controversial. The fact that it has a much higher percentage of white students and Asian students than it does Black and minority students. But I'll say this, before they ever had affirmative action, 2 of the kids who got in from my junior high school, as it was called then, were African American. And one of them is a very successful attorney here in Los Angeles. So 2 out of 4 were African American, and this is in the 60s. So there's an awful lot of achievement. These people who go around and think that somehow it's disparaging. That's one of Thomas's arguments and some of the other conservatives' arguments, that it's sort of a badge that you didn't do as well. Let's see Obama's grades, that sort of thing. By the way, you don't see people going around with placards when Justice Thomas is speaking. Let's see Thomas's grades. It got him into Yale Law School. Let's see Thomas's grades. You don't see placards like that. As I said, there's an awful lot of bad blood over this issue. There really is. This one is a really contentious one, and it's going to be ugly after they rule.
But this now newly heavily weighted court, it seems the outcome is predictable. So much love for you on the chat, David. I wish we had more time to talk. You are a great asset to our show. We'll work out the audio, although the audio worked out with John. John just had to herd over the mute a little bit, but we'll get you, headphones for next to our headset, and plug in. But the picture was great. You sounded great. But more than anything, I just want you to know a massive contribution to our show. And I really appreciate you being here.
Mark, it's great to be on with you. If I can mention one last thing, I spoke at the Law Library over the weekend, and I gave your show a plug. So I hope people are joining from the Law Library.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I thank you, Dave. You can reach David. We have it. We've been up with the conversation, the super with your name on it, at David Katz Law on Twitter. David Katz, a former assistant U.S. attorney. Such a great resource. Thanks for the plug to the high-end lawyers, too. David Katz, everybody. Thanks, David. Not that I mind hearing myself back, John. I kind of like that. And Kim, if I have to hear something back, hearing myself back is one of the least objectionable things. I'll say that.
Yeah, but then you had to throw in the drops, and man.
Yeah.
You're right. That was pretty rough. Kim's News is standing by, and then we've got a special documentary filmmaker who's done a documentary. I mean, it's so revealing. Shot on Skid Row in Los Angeles, and you see these stories, and you feel like they're applicable to so much of even the Tenderloin in the city and what's going on around the Bay Area as well with the homeless community. So We'll get to that next. But
hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Yes, stop for news.
Who's Mark Thompson?
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. President Biden calling for a new tax on large oil and gas companies raking in record profits as Americans face high at the pump. From the White House yesterday, President Biden accused oil companies of refusing to lower gasoline prices despite record profits in the third quarter. He said companies are not giving consumers a break at the pump and excess profits are instead only going to shareholders. The president said he will be working with Congress to impose a higher tax on excess profits if those companies don't start bringing those prices down. PG&E trying to save the last operating nuclear plant in California, the state's largest utility applying to the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission to renew Diablo Canyon's license and postpone the plant's shutdown in 2025. That plant is located in San Luis Obispo County, supplies about 9% of California's power. The move is a part of Governor Gavin Newsom's plan to improve reliability of the electricity grid in the state. A man shot at the Safeway in San Francisco on Mission Street Saturday was a security guard trying to prevent a shoplifter. The guard suffered life-threatening injuries, and police say they found that suspect trying to flee on a Muni bus. He was arrested and identified as 50-year-old Andre Brown. Well, the trial must not be going very well because Santa Clara County Sheriff Lori Smith retired. She awaits the verdict in her civil corruption trial. The 70-year-old wanted to step down on her own terms despite fighting to keep her job until January. If a jury finds her guilty, she would be removed and would have been removed and banned from running for public office ever again. The undersheriff of Santa Clara County has now stepped in until a new sheriff is appointed or elected. Beware of sharks in Pacific Grove. Those signs are up now for visitors after a third shark encounter since June. The latest came yesterday, this time, though, not off Lover's Point, off Otter's Point, where a surfer was bumped and then knocked into the water when a shark whacked against a surfboard. Happened about 100 yards from shore. The surfer wasn't hurt, managed to swim back to shore on his own, but boy, that must have been a fast swim. Clocks will go back. Can you imagine? He like bumped off your board and you're like, holy God,
yeah, I am out. I am out of here, right?
I'm not just swimming. I'm swimming.
Yeah.
Y'all can all go to hell and I'm going back to Texas.
Yeah, I'm swimming back to Texas.
The clocks will go back 1 hour this Saturday. The daylight savings time ends at 2 a.m. November 6th. We lose an hour at this time, get earlier sunsets. Most of the United States are on daylight savings time except for Hawaii and Arizona, but there are proposed bills that would end the time change every year and make daylight savings time permanent. And I know, you know, we're talking about murder, Mark, but maybe you're ready for romance this holiday season. What do you think? No? No.
All right. Well, continue. I'll take a meeting on it.
Hallmark Christmas movies will be streaming on Peacock this holiday season. Peacock announcing today that it is teaming up with Hallmark Media to feature programming from its family networks. The programming will include 40 new Hallmark Christmas movies. They really crank those things out.
What?
They'll be available to view on Peacock
I guess
all
there's a lot of
long.
romance around Christmas that hasn't been explored yet. Wow.
Love is in the air. It's always the same story. Hallmark programming begins on Peacock starting on Wednesday. Sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses alike. If you need help on your taxes, please give Steve a call. You can get him at 888-TAX-DEAL or on the web at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Stevens, and this is the greatest radio show in the history of the world. The Mark Thompson Show. It's in all the record books. Look it up.
What up, everybody? So cool to have everybody on board.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Well, that didn't last long. You know, I thought I'd get a little love, at least, you know. So great to have everybody with us. Thank you so much for your contributions, your support, and, you know, for participating and watching, and I mention it because it's important. You got to smash
it with your iron rod.
Smash the like button on YouTube.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Don't just watch, but hit the thumbs up. That helps us in the algorithm. You can also join us and make a contribution. Kevin Hobbs, come on.
Thank you so much.
Kevin Hobbs, thank you for the $20. Super sticker from Kevin Hobbs. $9.99 from LM.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, LM. Really, really cool. A super sticker from Jackie Walker, $5.
Thank you so much.
I missed the Ron Owens drop. Hopefully you can bring that back. Oh, you mean the what the hell's going on?
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Thank you, Ron. I talk to him probably once every couple of weeks. He's in good shape, so everybody will know. William, $3. Thank you, William.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, super sticker from William. You can hit the super sticker and make a contribution. You can also hit the super chat, which is at the bottom of the chat. Make a contribution that way, and also add a comment, and we will read that comment 100% of the time because you're supporting the show with a donation.
100% effective. How about that?
It's one way to support the show. And the other way, of course, is on our Patreon site, patreon.com/The Mark Thompson Show. But you can also just go to our website, themarkthompsonshow.com. There's a click through the Patreon. There's a PayPal. There are all the ways that you can support us. And the last thing I'll say is if you haven't gone to the merch site to get the KJO and Exile t-shirts, go soon because they're a limited edition. And getmarkmerch.com is where you can find the t-shirts, you can find the tote bags, you can find the mugs, you can find the hydration systems. All of them exist there at getmarkmerch.com. So thank you, everybody, for all the ways you support our show. Now, I want to welcome in a guy who's done a film it's on location in Skid Row is where he shot it. And he talks to people there in ways that really reveal a life on Skid Row in Los Angeles. And I think when you see it, it'll remind you of a lot of things if you're familiar with the situation in the Bay Area, the Tenderloin and beyond. These homeless encampments are places where any number of things exist that we know exist, and then we also maybe only have a vague sense of. And some of this is informed by racism and a structural challenge that people suffer in these communities. The director is with us now. The movie's called The Dirty Divide. Paul Friedman. Paul Friedman, welcome.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you great, and you look great. I think, Paul, you may get the award, and I'll ask my colleagues, as the best lit.
I want to apologize.
The best lit guest, wouldn't you say, John?
Fabulous producer, John Daly.
And I'm thinking the background, the aesthetic is working.
And look at how well he lit. It's no wonder he's a director and a filmmaker. Look
I got
at
the
him.
whole crew in here. Just
Can you drive over to Mark's house?
Yeah, could you drive over here and make me look better? All right, so Paul.
I'm a documentary filmmaker. I'm a bottom feeder in Hollywood, as you know. So,
well, it's funny. I always felt that if I were wealthy, I would put money into documentary filmmaking. It's a great way to tell stories. But as you sort of have just suggested, it's not a great way to make money. You sort of have to,
No.
But you really have to be driven, and clearly you were, to make this film that is so very revealing. Tell us about the movie.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate any chance to talk about this issue. I've been a documentary filmmaker for a long time, and the bulk of my filmography is social justice films in places like Rwanda, Darfur, Eastern Congo, really looking into some of the dark corners of some of the bad stuff going on in the world. Really trying to shine a light on human rights abuses and what we can do about them. Little did I know, well, I did know. I ignored for years the human rights abuses I was passing as I drove on the way to the airport to go to these places. And finally, I just said, as you just mentioned, the explosion of encampments in not just Los Angeles, but across the country. I mean, in Oakland and San Jose, San Francisco. And it just drove me to say, I just can't. Why am I going there when I should be here? So I set out and went down to Skid Row and talked to some people to try to get access, and decided to make a film about the folks there. And it was a transformative experience, as are all these projects. And what you find in these encampments, like you said, are a lot of surprises, a lot of beauty, a lot of resilience, a lot of hope, a lot of pain and suffering. And yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Paul Friedman, let me ask you, when you're down there and you're shooting this, The Dirty Divide, and you're talking to all of these people, and as you say, there are all of these revelations along the way, it leads me to a question. I hate questions like this, but I'm going to ask you anyway, and you can, you'll jujitsu it and make it workable. But give me a couple of the biggest surprises that you were struck by.
That's exactly what I hope the film rolls out, is how to myth bust, really, because I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I've always driven by these folks, and I see spectral figures, I see ghosts, I see faceless folks who are just we don't have time for them. So I went into this, and before I could actually start shooting, Mark, I really had to. I was asked by the organization that allowed me access, which is the Los Angeles Community Action Network, or LA CAN, and they sort of before I could get access. They're located in Skid Row for 25 years, and before they would really let me, or for my own good, walk around the neighborhood with a camera, I really had to get trust. And so I walked around without a camera at first, then with a camera, then I turned the camera on. And it took months to really get some trust. So talking with them, we felt that the most valuable thing a film could do would be blow up 3 of the biggest myths around houselessness in this country. One is that everybody who's houseless is a drug addict. Everybody who's houseless. The second one is everybody's mentally ill. And the third is they all sort of come to LA because of the weather. And as I kind of bought into those ideas before. We blew up those myths. I say without a doubt that those are myths. Yes, there's mental illness. Yes, there is substance abuse. Absolutely. But perhaps the biggest surprise that I had was that I suffer from mental illness. I have depression. I take a little white pill every morning. I have a psychiatrist that I can afford. I have a nice home. I can go to sleep in my bed. I can lock my door. I can pull the blinds. I have a loving and supportive relationship with family and neighbors. My mental illness is treated. The mental illness that we see in the streets when folks are ripping their hair off and tearing their clothes off and howling at the moon, this is untreated mental illness without windows or doors, without shades they can pull down. So there's a big difference in what we experience, what we're seeing in the streets. And I say that because the evidence tells us from the point in time homeless counts that the rate of mental illness in the housed community is about the same as it is in the unhoused community. And the same goes for drug addiction and substance abuse. So these were myths that were absolutely exploded, surprised. We find that the number one cause of homelessness is housing unaffordability. The number 2 cause of homelessness is not drug addiction, it's housing unavailability. And the third is poverty. Just poor folks become homeless faster than anybody else. So that's really what the film's about, and those are my biggest revelations. It's a great question. Thanks.
I only have another minute or
Sure.
so, but and then we'll tell people where they can see the film and The Dirty Divide. Paul Friedman has put this. It's really an unvarnished look at this community. He's put it together, and when you're talking about the texture of this community, I think you're right. I think the sense that one has is it's drug-addled people with mental illness and the poverty thing. I always say that we're all just 2, maybe 1, but certainly 2 personal emergencies away from living in our car. I mean, I really believe that, but it's when you're secure, it always feels like, oh, those people over there. I really feel as though there's a greater fragility to life than we realize often. So your sense was it was that fragility that had sort of wrought a real horror on these people, and they end up in these encampments amid drug addiction and amid those who are, who have serious mental illness.
Absolutely. And I slept outside. I wanted to know what it felt like to sleep on that hard ground. I went out, I got a tent. I slept for a few nights out there. And I'll tell you, after the first night, when you don't sleep, you're scared. There's no place to pee or poop. Where do you get your coffee in the morning? I'll tell you, after a couple nights of that, you start feeling a little cuckoo. I can't imagine what it'd be like to be out there for weeks and months and years having to endure that and not having any resources. So if you ain't crazy when you get down there, it'll happen. So it's something that we really, the issue is really more about my perception of homeless people than homeless people there. They're trying to survive. They're not thinking about me.
I really love the name, the Dirty Divide, because it really kind of hits home that so many people think of it as us and them, and that there is, there's no way you could ever end up like that.
Absolutely. And that's a geographical location that the title comes from. LA Can's articulation of the Dirty Divide is Main Street that runs north and south through downtown Los Angeles. To the west of Main Street, you have folks living in lofts and lattes, and it's beautiful. Flower pots on the corners, garbage cans, dog parks. To the east of Main Street, it changes drastically and profoundly. There's no garbage cans. There's no source of fresh water for a community of about 15,000 people. About 3,500 of them live directly on the sidewalk. There's no place to go to the bathroom. There's no source of fresh water. So it really is a divide right in the middle of the most affluent community in perhaps in the country.
Paul Friedman, where can people see the Dirty Divide?
Well, we are just trying to get it released now. We're looking for people to pick it up. We're having our a private screening literally this evening in Beverly Hills. So are you inviting
all my listeners to a private screening? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay.
We're pretty sold out, actually.
Okay.
But if you go to my website, you have it up there at paulfriedman.net. We're going to start updating when folks can be able to see this. I hope it's out soon. We want to enter this conversation, particularly now, this political time in Los Angeles, when really we need solutions rather than hysteria, old ideas, more shelters. We need people to really start elevating this conversation because 5 homeless people a day die in Los Angeles County.
Wow. Well, we'll look forward to that, Paul. So it's all there at paulfriedman.net. Really cool for you to hang out. And we're getting questions about whether you sew because there's a mannequin that is like a dress sewing kind of mannequin behind. So, I mean,
no, I don't.
Okay, my viewers and listeners, we pay attention to every detail. So the best lit guest yet on the Mark Thompson Show. Great. Paul Friedman. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
I was going to say, the mannequin naked with only a necklace. So.
Yeah, well, there is that too. So,
No, that's not right. That's not
true. He's our OG. I'm talking about Steve Moskowitz, everybody. So it's interesting. I wouldn't consider Steve a guest. He's a sponsor. I mean, he's a guest, I guess, technically, but he's very well lit. If you were to put him into the guest lighting competition, I would say that he'd be number 2 after Paul, who we just had. And I was astounded by how well he was lit. But Steve has gone from 0 to hero in the lighting department. But he's always been our hero in the tax advice department. And over 30 years, he's been the OG in the Bay Area as well. I mean, and we've talked a lot about small businesses and individuals who have a business, sole proprietors, who are eligible for the program that you are trying to get people to embrace in all the different ways that it is embraceable, and that's ERC. Hi, Steve.
That's right, Mark. Thanks. And, it's not just money. These are people's lives. Businesses involve the lives of the owner, their family, their employees, the families of the employees. It's a big deal. And the ERC, just like the PPP, can make the difference between a business staying in business, turning things around and prospering, or closing up shop and wondering how they're going to pay that big stack of bills they can't pay. And I've talked about ERC a lot, where the employer can get up to $26,000 if you qualify. And I've explained that there's 2 ways that you can qualify. The easy way with a certain drop in gross revenue, the more complicated way that a lot of firms are ignoring because you got to do a bunch of work to figure out, but that's okay. Your facts and circumstances test. Do you qualify? We'll go over that with you. And if you don't qualify, we'll tell you why. If you do qualify, we'll tell you why. I've warned you about don't go to some fraudster that'll say you qualify when you don't. Obviously, nobody ever wants to commit a fraud. You don't want to commit a tax fraud. You want to get everything to which you're legally entitled, no more and no less. And we'd like to think we go the extra mile, like we were talking about in the earlier spot where a client could say, look, his creditors have cut him off because he can't pay him. If you want, well, I should go to that creditor for you and say, look, I've applied for ERC and my client is expected to get X number of dollars. It's money from the government. It's not some creditor that maybe will pay you, maybe won't. This is United States government. And we show them the forms, and based on the strength of that, continue my client's credit, and he'll pay you in full once he gets the money. It's going that extra mile. It's not just cold forms. It's people's lives, and that's what I want your listeners to understand.
Well, I've said it before. I've dealt with the IRS. I've been audited. I was really young. I didn't know Steve Moskowitz back then. I really didn't know what was going on. And I thought it was just you fill out the form, and I literally went in, with a shoebox of receipts. And I think I've mentioned this to you once before, but I thought, now that I know what I know, like, you need a representative of the government, but not just at audit time, to avoid an audit, but still aggressively represent you. I think that's the great service that you provide. So you can reach Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. You can also reach him online at moskowitzllp.com. Steve, thank you so much for supporting the show, and I want people to find your services. I think you offer a lot to the community.
Thanks, Mark, and I know the listeners are enjoying your show, and I just want to see it grow every day.
Thanks, pal. Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Yeah, you know it. You're right.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Who's Mark Thompson?
The Mark Thompson Show.
We will make our way here for the next YouTube channel that you'll want to join. That'll be the Nikki Medoro Show in just a few minutes. But before I get to that, do I have some shout-outs, John? Do I have some, what do I need to do?
Just general shout-outs.
General shout-outs? I want to...
Fabulous producer, John Daly.
Yeah, fabulous producer, John Daly, kind of keeps me on track once in a while.
Well, I don't know about that.
If you... Well, tries to. Mm-hmm. If you have questions for Steve Moskowitz, a lot of you text in questions on the chat, and I love that.
Why don't you just text him?
But you should call him, ask him, how much does this cost? What's involved with this? 888-TAX-DEAL. That's the reason we give you the number. Okay. The Nikki Medoro Show today. This I look forward to. What does she have? At noon, we talk with Mission Locals Joe Eskenazi about the Pelosi attack in U.S. politics. Mayor Breed gets criticized for her Halloween costume. What? Oh, that ain't cool. I
had a good time at the Black Cat.
And don't have $1 million? Let's go house shopping in San Francisco.
I don't know about you and whether or not.
Do you think she dressed as Tony
and Dwayne Wiggins?
She was dressed as Dwayne Wiggins, which not many people know. Maybe Nikki will have that on her show. I don't know if she will. But that's
Joe
over on the Nikki Medoro
really
Show.
The
what?
Is great. Yeah. Joe Eskenazi is great. He's a great reporter at Mission Local.
Oh, that's very cool. So you'll get a chance to hear from him as Nikki speaks with him. So, guys, here's the situation. As we go off the air, please smash the like button.
Smash it with your iron rod.
What's so magic about
the situation?
Yeah. What we have here is a situation. Yeah.
What he's got going here is a situation.
There's a reason this place is fun.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
So someone sent me, I hadn't planned on telling you this, but in the last minute, let me just refer it to you. Someone sent, I wish I could remember who, sent me, one of our listeners, and you can reach me at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com, themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. Somebody sent me at that address a Grady. Now, Sheriff Grady is the guy who's on those, we got here is a situation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he's from Florida.
What he's got going here is a situation.
So this Halloween, just yesterday, one of the costumes that you could go out as was Sheriff Grady. And I'll find it for you and I'll show it to you tomorrow at this time. So the same people will see it who are hearing that's out there. But there is a Sheriff Grady Halloween. Did you send it to me, Kim? I can't remember who sent it to me.
No, I didn't send.
Oh. But
Kim, how are you?
Anyway, you'll see it tomorrow. So anyway, I got up that digression, but I wanted to mention another great show. Thank you all, says Ricky Freed. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for all the ways you support us. I mentioned Patreon. I have to mention it now more than I would. As I say, I kind of feel like I'm doing a little mini telethon every day. But we need to support the show. I need to support staff. There it is. Sheriff Grady. Sheriff Grady Judd includes uniform, TV camera, microphone, moon pie, 7-Up, bonus Polk County dictionary, so you too can speak Polk County. Wow.
What he's got going here is a situation.
A Sheriff Grady Judd costume. Very impressive. Thank you for hustling that up there.
Fabulous producer, John Daly.
Nice job. A fabulous show, and it's not even Friday. Says SF Tesla.
Sheriff in there anyway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a bit of a ham.
Just a bit.
Just a bit.
Yeah, he's definitely
you
one
can
of those
see the
guys
smirk in his face as he looks in the camera.
Yeah, he enjoys the spotlight without question. So, any last thoughts? I turn it over to you. To my anything, Kim? Last thought.
Stay out of the water in Pacific Grove. You know, it's not a good time for you.
Yeah, it's definitely.
What?
Yeah, well, there's a shark. He's shocked with the shark attack down there. Yeah. How about you, fabulous producer John Daly? Final thought?
Stay at home and get baked.
Yeah, right on, brother. Right on. You know, where am I?
I was fortunate. Everyone I worked with made me better at my job.
Not everyone in my case, but
stay at home and get baked.
There you go. That's cool. We've loved it. We've loved it. Thank you for all the ways you interact with us. Go to getmarkmerch.com if you want those KJO and Exile t-shirts. Shadow, where's my boy Shadow? You got to say goodbye, Shadow.
Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
And thanks, everybody.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Till tomorrow. Bye-bye.